Now what I did right here is I have created few more books. Let me make one change here in the application. If we go to our book index, let's go here, go to the view. Let me also add a new th here for the price. And we'll do td here. We'll display at item.price. We'll save this, go back and refresh, and we should see the price right here. Great, we have that. Now one more column that I want to display is publisher. So if we go take a look at our book, inside the controller, we have the book. In there we have this publisher object, but we have the publisher ID that is populated, but this object is not populated. The way you can see is if you add a debugger here, if you go back and refresh the page, right here if we examine obj list, you will see that publisher is empty. We have the ID but not the publisher. So what if we want to load this publisher, and then if we go back to our view, right here we can display the publisher. I'll comment the other one out. And we'll display the publisher like this. So it will be inside item, we have publisher object. In there we can display the name. But for that what we have to do is we need to make sure it is loaded right here when we pass to the view. Well, there are multiple ways to do that. Let's get started with the one that makes most sense right now. We will iterate through all of the objects in this list and we will load the publisher object. So we will have a for each statement here. We'll say variable obj in obj list, and we'll say obj dot, we have the publisher is equal to, we will load that from database, so db.publishers.first.default based on the ID. So we'll say u goes to u.publisherID is equal to inside obj. We saw the publisher ID was populated. If we save this and run the application, let's take a look at what happens. If we go to book, we will be seeing all the publishers as you can see right here. So with this we can load any properties that we want in a for each loop. But what happens if within publisher there is another property that you want to load? It will be too many loops and it's not that efficient. The reason I say it's not that efficient is if we go back here to the output, take a look at number of queries that it had to execute. We'll go right here. You can see for each and every publisher, it went back to the database to retrieve that. That's not that much efficient with so many round trips to the database. Another way of doing the same thing is using explicit loading. In there also, rather than loading it like this, what we will do is when we have the for each loop, I will just stop the application here. Let me comment this one out. And then we'll directly call the db context. In there, we have the entry method. Here, we want to call it on what entity? We want to call it on the obj entity. And we want to load the publisher. For each object, there will be only one publisher, so we will use .reference. If we had more than one publisher for every object or entity, we will be using collection here. So inside the reference, we'll use lambda expression and we'll say u goes to u.publisher. On this, we will call the load, and that will actually load all the publishers, just like we were doing right here. Let's take a look at this in action one more time. We'll go to the book again. And we see all the publishers here. Let's take a look at the output. And the execution again, you can see it is going to the database every single time for the publishers. And here you will notice that the query execution for publisher is 3 times. In the first method that we tried, it was executing it 5 times, and that is because we have 5 books, or I think it would be 6 times because we have 6 books. But in this way, when we are using the entry using explicit loading, it loads the query only 3 times. The reason is because how many distinct publishers do we have? We only have 3 publishers here. That's why it goes to the database for the publisher ID only that it does not find. It avoids the duplicate records. So now you have a better way of loading the children as compared to what we did in the first time, because we are reducing the number of round trips to the database. And as always, the less number of round trips you make to the server, the more efficient your system will be. So the first way is least efficient. I'll have that here. Next way here, using explicit loading, is more efficient. And by the tone of how I'm explaining things, you might have assumed that there is best or extremely efficient way, which I'm saving for the last. We will understand that as we progress with the course, but for now, let's continue in the next video.